We're officially halfway through Ashtanga Yoga's primary series with Navasana. It's a strengthening posture, the boat pose. It helps us to strengthen the front of the body, to strengthen the front of the hips. And it's great right after the Marichasanas, where we kind of move inwards and we squeeze in to twist and move the energy up. So it's one more time of just like squeezing in before we start to open and lengthen through the inner thighs, open into the hips a little bit more. So we can start with a really simple posture, finding the right foundation that's going to carry us through the fullest expression of Navasana. And just to keep in mind, every point along this pathway that I'm going to take us through is a super acceptable variation of Navasana. So you can stop anywhere along this pathway that works for you. But I also find it's a really great way to sort of set up the foundation of what Navasana is going to ultimately be for you. So you can just start here with your knees towards your chest, and maybe the tips of your toes on the floor, lightly touching, so that you find this space between your sit bones and the sacrum. So you're not all the way back here, where you'd be like behind the sit bones, and you're not like really far behind the sit bones, like kind of like on top of the sacrum. And you're not here where you're kind of coming in front of the sit bones, and you really, in this position, you're really feeling those two bony points of the sit bones. So you're just behind the sit bones, not too much behind, just behind, so that you're not sitting on top of the sacrum, right in between. Find that balance. And then from here, you can focus on gathering that energy at the base of the pelvis, drawing the lower belly in. And feel, again, this squeezing inwards, the knees moving in. You might feel a tendency to let the knees splay out, but then you sort of lose out on this opportunity to strengthen through the front of the hips if you let the knees fall apart. So, knees together, find the space just behind the sit bones. And so, the position of the pelvis, it feels a little bit like you're dropping the tailbone. So it's the opposite of like arching the back, like what I was speaking about before, where you're like on top of the sit bones. You're dropping the tailbone just a little bit. And then you counteract that by lifting the heart. So you're not dropping the tailbone and collapsing the heart. It's a really small dropping of the tailbone. Draw the lower belly in and lift the heart. So you're nice and open here. And the shoulders are relaxed and they're moving down the back. There's a tendency when it gets really hard in Navasana to kind of shrug the shoulders up. If that's a pattern that's kind of built in for you, then that might happen. So just make sure that the shoulders are nice and relaxed so the neck has a lot of space. And then from here, this can be your Navasana, or you can make it a little bit more challenging by lifting the feet. And just notice, there might be a slight shift back to lift the feet up, as long as it's not too far back where you go into this position where you're kind of like on top of the sacrum. Keep the heart lifted, keep drawing the lower belly in, and then you can either have the hands behind the thighs or the hands out to the side. You just want the arms in level with the shoulders, with the palms facing in. And then the last version, well, maybe not the last version, sure there's a lot of versions, but another version is to straighten the legs all the way. Again, notice if this happens, and you lose the integrity of the posture. Lift the heart, stay just behind the sit bones, and then again feel this internal rotation through the thighs so that you're squeezing in. You feel this pattern of like moving in towards the center so that you're really strengthening the front of the body and strengthening the front of the hips without losing that integration through the front of the hips for the strengthening aspects of this posture. So you want to feel the legs spiraling inwards, and you could even feel that spiral inwards reaching all the way out through the base of the big toe. So you can do this like pointing position, internally spiraling through the legs, and continue reaching out through the base of the big toe. So you're here and you're lifting the heart. This is so common to come into here with Navasana, which, you're still strengthening something, but you're not fully getting into the front of the hip strengthening that Navasana is targeting. So if you lose the structure, if you lose the integrity of this foundation when you straighten the legs, then just go for one of these versions where you have a more integrity to the structure, but maybe it's just like less intense version. I think it's better to be here than to be here. So, and speaking of that position, something that I've liked to incorporate into my Navasana practice, just to like add a little bit more of that hollow body strengthening, that front body strengthening. This is just for fun. This is not part of the Ashtanga yoga conventional series for Navasana. So after 5 breaths here, you can roll down, and now you really tuck the tailbone under, really rotate the pelvis under so that the lower back is touching the floor. So you come into this position. It's like a wide open Navasana for 5 breaths, and then you can come back in and finish that set in Navasana with the hands in front of the hips, lifting the hips or lifting the hips and the feet, and then you come down. So that's optional. I find that really awesome to really finish targeting the front of the body, strengthening in Navasana. The high Navasana, I think, more targets the front of the hips, but when you roll down, you get the whole entire front of the body, which is a nice strength to cultivate for inversions. Yeah, it's really important in our practice, for our inversion practice, so that we don't like splay out and go into that back bending pattern. So conventionally in Ashtanga though, we do 5 breaths here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, cross the shins, inhale, lift, exhale, come down. And you can do that again. You can do it with the feet up or the feet lowered. Or if you want to throw in that extra challenge, 5 breaths here, 5 breaths here. Make sure the lower back is touching, and again, feel this inward spiraling through the thighs. Inhale, come up, lift, exhale, come down. And then we usually do 5 sets of Navasana, 5 breaths in each set. Yeah, and after this, we get to do some more strengthening stuff. We're about to enter the gateway postures, kind of like the peak of the mountain. So we're just approaching that peak. So the energy is up, the fire is up. Usually when Navasana comes in the sequence, it's not hard. It's like a moment where everybody kind of has to like gather all of their strength and focus the attention to keep moving through the rest of the series. Something that, I know this might sound obvious, but something that I find super helpful in Navasana is to tune into the breath. And I mean, obviously we're doing yoga, of course we're tuning into the breath, but to really feel the breath, like a deep breath into the rib cage and settle the attention there. For me, it's really important in that moment to like really feel the fullness of the breath, because that kind of takes my mind off of the difficulty of the posture in that moment. So like really going into that experience. For me, it's helped me get through, because especially by like the 4th or the 5th one, you're like shaking and you want to get out of it. So that's kind of like something to like help you get through it, you know, and taking deep breaths really gives you that fire that you need to keep moving through difficult postures like this. And relax the face. That's also been a really helpful thing for me when I'm doing difficult postures, is to relax the muscles in the face. And you'd be surprised how much of that energy that you're holding in the face can be redirected to another part of the body that actually needs it to keep going through the posture, or to like hold the structure of the posture, the foundation of the posture. So you're kind of like redirecting the energy from the face and from like behind the eyes, and all of that tension can move into like the front of the body to hold the posture in a way where you can like relax what doesn't need to be engaged. Relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the face. And that's been super helpful for me to just kind of feel that ease in postures like this that can feel super hard. So you give the posture a sense of lightness and a sense of softness. Right.